All right, Sarah Eden. She usually has pretty good takes.
Why is there an underlying assumption that men have to behave and act a certain way to avoid being creepy, but women never have to do the same?
This is an easy answer. We live in a feminine-dominated era. What this means is that feminine ideas or a feminine way of thinking is seen as the correct way by the masses. The feminine doesn't just mean women, since there's a little bit of a masculine-feminine balance that occurs within people. But obviously, women are female. They are majority feminine, so female behavior is going to be seen as correct. Without getting too in depth on the explanation on this, I think it goes down to double standards. No matter what we do to abolish double standards, they're always going to exist anyways. So it just comes down to which double standards do we see as appropriate versus inappropriate. These days, what you'll notice is that double standards that benefit women, they're seen as okay. Double standards that benefit men, they're seen as not okay. This is one of many small indicators that proves to us we're in a feminine dominated era. Why can only men be creeps and not women? This is because there's almost zero understanding for the masculine perspective, while there's infinite understanding for the female perspective. If men approach women, control your urges. If women approach men, it's okay. They're not threatening. They're lonely. Insert whatever feminine excuse is thrown for those situations.
Let me explain. Most men have to constantly watch what they say, watch what they do, watch how they behave to avoid looking creepy. For example, if he's at the gym and he glances a certain way and maybe the girl in front of him has booty shorts on, now he's considered a creep and he's checking her out. Or if he's at the beach and he's looking at his laptop and just happens to glance up and there's a bunch of girls taking selfies, now he's a creep for even looking in their direction.
He's only a creep because the girl that's subconsciously signaling, like the girl that's wearing booty shorts, she doesn't find that guy attractive. If she does find him attractive, then it doesn't matter. Obviously, from a masculine perspective, when we're looking at the hard logic of it, it makes zero sense. The feminine doesn't care about logic or reason. It only cares about feeling. And in their head, when girls put those clothes on, they don't put those clothes on for that whatever small percentage of invisible men. No, those men are not the issue. They put those clothes on for that 1, 2, or 3 guys that they actually find super attractive. Of course, when they go out into public, they expect everyone else to buy into that program, and you're supposed to just know if you're attractive or not. You're supposed to know your place. You're supposed to know that you aren't good enough to approach me. How dare you? That's where all this essentially comes from. And yes, it doesn't make sense, but this is an insight to how they think. And no, they're not going to say they think that way directly because it makes them look like a bad person, obviously. If you ask them in a passive way about, oh, there's lots of options, they always look at guys that are actually attractive as very few, and all those men in the middle that they would definitely date, they see them not even as men. They see them as like neutral people. Like they're people, but they're not men. It's very interesting how girls function this way, but they don't see it that way. When you ask them and you put them on the spot, they'll be like, oh yeah, but I don't count those guys. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight.
But when women come up to a man and touch him or grope him or gawk at him or make advances, it's considered completely normal.
Welcome to the world of double standards. A guy is very rarely going to be put off by a girl gawking him. That is just the reality. The main reason is even the most attractive guys, unless they're famous, they probably don't get that much attention. The other reality, of course, is that girls are much more subtle when it comes to giving attraction cues. Unless you're one of those guys that knows exactly what it looks like when a girl finds you attractive, you could very easily not notice most of the most obvious signals that girls throw. Also, this double standard exists because we're inherently unequal. You can't have the same standards for unequal beings. Doesn't make any sense. Comparing men and women is not apples to apples. To go further from this point, women are the sexual selectors, so they're the ones that give the signal for the guy to react to. If you're a guy that's constantly hunting, what you put yourself at risk to is a girl taking you in because there's no one better around, but you'll do good for the time being. Not only that, but you also put yourself at risk for looking like a creep because you're supposed to just get it. The reality of this is that it's never going to change. It's always going to be the same. And the obvious main reason for this is because this is how we're hardwired. I've done the explanation before as to why there's this fantasy in society that the guy must chase a lot. This comes from an entirely different era where a girl would still give a guy a signal, but for him to get to her, he had to go through dad, grandfather, one brother, two brother, three brother, super early curfews, tons of shame. Things were just very, very different. And all of that was perceived as chasing. When all the reality was is the girl was essentially trapped because she had eyes all around her, so she couldn't do what she actually wanted to do. Sure, there's probably some exceptions to that because some girls do choose partners purely based on logic and not emotion, but that's exceedingly rare. The whole reality behind being feminine is that they are weak to the right guy. Being weak essentially means leaking information or letting them know through their behavior that they're into them. At that point, it's your job as a guy to either take the bait or not. Let's move on.
A perfect example of this is when Adam Levine got groped at his concert by someone coming on stage, and he was ridiculed for telling that woman to get off of him. It's like men have to constantly watch what they say, watch what they do, watch how they behave, but women don't have the same consequences. If a man says to a woman he's not interested after she makes advances at him or is gawking at him or being inappropriate, then suddenly there's something wrong with him and he must be gay because as a society, men are conditioned to just want these things. And
I understand what she's trying to do. She's trying to dispel the double standards on both sides because these days we're always talking about how men benefit from double standards, which obviously isn't true. So she's trying to do men a service by saying, oh, but there are double standards that women benefit from that men don't. I want to dispel those things. Even though I know her intentions are in the right place, you're never going to change these things. I think the best approach is to accept that these double standards exist for a reason. Why don't women get the same treatment? Because they're inherently not as threatening. That's just the reality. When women attack, they don't attack on a physical level. They always attack on a mental level. You could even argue a metaphysical level. For this reason, they're not as immediately threatening in most situations. The lack of reaction exists because they're not perceived as an immediate danger. If Adam Levine really wanted her off of him, he could have physically pushed her away and he probably would have been fine in court. We can call it unfair all we want, but it's never going to go away.
Want women and sexualized and all of these things. Women never have to overtly work on their behavior to not look creepy. And let's not forget, being creepy is only subjective to attractiveness.
So she's right, but here's the other thing. Girls are always wanted by someone. So how can you be creepy when you're undesirable? All that being creepy means is that you're undesirable and pursuing people. That's it. It has this implication that you lack some sort of social tact. That's the whole notion of it. You're pursuing somebody, but you're doing it in an inappropriate way that no one can properly define. I'll define it for you right here. He has a lack of experience with women, so he doesn't know how to layer what he's saying in a way to deliver the message, but not deliver it so harshly that she has to respond in a negative way. Example, you're not going to go to a woman and say, oh, your ass looks really, really good. Now, some guys may do that, and yes, it could work in a very rare circumstance, but most of the time, if you teach some guy with no experience with women, if you tell him to go say that, he's going to appear creepy. If he says it in a more socially viable way, like let's say, for example, he tells the woman, I really like how your clothes look. She will still get the hint that he finds her attractive, but it won't be so direct and overt. Because it's not so direct and overt, it comes off easier socially. There's a touch of plausible deniability where she's not sure if he means sexually or if he genuinely means the compliment. So she has to give him the benefit of the doubt, and it alleviates some of that social pressure. These two things essentially can accomplish the exact same thing, but one of them is considered creepy and the other one isn't. To boil this all down, if you're creepy, it means you don't have enough experience and you have to get better at talking to me. Yes, I want you to find me attractive, and yes, I want you to talk to me, but I want you to do it in a way where I have to guess whether or not you find me attractive. I don't want you to spoil it for me and tell me directly. On top of that, if I see that you're socially uncalibrated and that you've never dated women before, I'm not going to find you attractive because you're just weird.
So if you're 6 foot, wealthy, good looking, then suddenly you're not creepy anymore. You're actually someone that these women might want to actually date. You're only creepy based on how attractive she finds you in the first place. But time and time again, men have to constantly watch what they do, watch what they say, watch where they even glance to make sure that they're not being creepy. But women never have to do the same. Okay, bye.
It's the reality of how it works. As time goes on, as life becomes more efficient, as there's less and less survival situations, there's going to be a smaller percentage of men that are seen as dating quality and a larger percentage of men that are going to be seen as non-dating quality, or in this case, creepy. All I can tell you is make sure you get on the right side of history, because if you don't, you'll just be a pawn. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Don't forget to check the links in the description below.